And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Jersey Joe. How are you?
Good, thank you. We've had some cool weather. It's been in the
Nice.
70s. It's been spectacular. So
Yes.
fall is just around the corner. Anyway, we're a day late. We normally do this Tuesday night. We're recording this Wednesday night. So I got a little more. I don't know if I'll be able to fit it all in, particularly since we have three different contenders for the stupidest thing all week. One of which is, I think you've read it. We'll have to get your opinion on there.
Mhm.
So we got three stupid things we've heard all week. One is a woman who's claiming that more police officers on the street won't make the streets safer. Do you know who Joy Reid is?
No.
She's a black talk show. She used to, up until about a month ago, she had her own show on MSNBC called The Readout. Very liberal talk show host, and she's claiming that everything that was ever invented by a white person was stolen from a black person. I bet you Eli Whitney and Willis Carrier didn't know that. And the third is about people like you contributing to global warming because you own dogs. So we'll have to pick which one of those is the stupidest thing I've heard all week. We've talked in the past about Mondami in New York City, the guy that's probably going to be mayor, how he wants to operate uh, uh, city-owned and operated grocery stores throughout the city.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
talked about the one in Kansas City. Well, the one in Kansas City has closed its doors. We'll talk about
That's
that.
shocking.
$18 million down the tubes, and they're out of business. Couldn't keep it in business. Um, let's talk about quote the January 6th insurrection. Remember, there was an insur. It was Trump tried to pull off an insurrection. Well, this is Ted Cruz interviewing a witness who testifying that both the Speaker of the House and the Speaker of the Senate were offered the National Guard protection for the Capitol building the day before, and they both turned it down. Now, if you were going to attempt to pull off an insurrection, would you offer the National Guard troops to protect the building if you were planning an insurrection?
No.
No. Okay. Well, we'll play testimony. This is sworn testimony. Mayor of New Orleans is in big trouble. Turns out that she was sleeping with one of her police bodyguards, and he was billing the city of New Orleans for the time he spent in her bed. How's that? How's that for a job, huh? Great, nice work if you can get
Yeah,
it.
seriously.
Um, we have an interesting. Do you remember who that Mike Pompeo was Secretary of State under Trump during Trump's first term? Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
Yes. Yes.
We have an interesting clip of him with an interview with John Stossel. We all know who John Stossel is, and
Mhm.
he tells John Stossel when it comes to the security of the United States, who he thinks the most dangerous person in the world is, and the answer is probably going to surprise you. I know it surprised the hell out of me. Time permitting, we've talked over the past year about how the city of San Francisco is dying. Businesses and stores are closing down. Office buildings are half empty. Owners are just walking away from hotels, telling the bank keep the hotel.
Yep. Hmm.
He's got a clip of a guy who just wrote a book on describing exactly what is the cause of the death in San Francisco. And we have an interesting taxpayer relief shot that comes from Fairborn, Ohio. Can you imagine you're living in a state where the governor says you can only have a 10-round magazine, and not one, not two, not three, not four, but five home invaders burst into your home in the middle of the night, and all you have is a 10-round magazine?
Yeah, that's not very good odds.
Well, but in this particular instance, five home invaders broke into the guy's house, but only four left alive. What do you think happened to the fifth guy? So
Yeah.
dead right there. All right. Um, so let's go to our stupidest thing all week. Now I want you to listen to all three because you're gonna have to pick the winner. And listeners, you pick the one that you think is the winner, and you email me at Joe at Jersey Joe. You tell me which one of these three you think is the stupidest thing we heard all week. Now the first one is this woman. She's being interviewed on the MSNBC, the Joe Scarborough Show, and she makes this assertion. And here's what she claims about more police on the street making the streets safer. Here we go. Think more police make streets safer? Uh, no, Joe. I'm a black woman in America. I do not always think that more police make streets safer. When you walk down the streets of Georgetown, you don't see a police officer on every corner, but you don't feel unsafe. So, what is it about talking about places like Southeast DC, right, Ward 8, if you will, that people say, well, we need more officers to make us safe? I think we have to rethink what safety means in America. Now, the corollary, if more police don't make you safer, the corollary would be that less police don't make you less safe. Wouldn't that be the corollary?
Yes.
So if you live in Ward 8 in Washington, D.C., which is a high crime area where they've got multiple assault with a deadly weapon daily, then
Hmm.
wouldn't her logic say, well, then we don't need all those police there? Wouldn't that be
Yes.
the natural
Yeah.
logic? Because if more police don't make you the streets safer, then less police shouldn't make you less safe, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's
No,
not.
it's George. She mentioned Georgetown though. So is Georgetown in Ward 8? Because Georgetown's a nice neighborhood.
No, that's what she's saying. It isn't in Ward 8. That's what she's saying. That,
Well,
but
I think one of the things that you have to look at in that particular case, because I've been to that neighborhood, I've been to Georgetown, and it is a very nice neighborhood. So
yep.
that kind of also goes hand in hand with the fact that like there's lower crime in that neighborhood of DC because it's a more affluent section of the
Right. And
town.
therefore, you don't have as many police. You don't
Hmm.
need as many. That's because they're not having, felony robberies on every corner.
Yeah.
So she's kind of got the cause and effect backwards there. When
Hmm.
you have high crime, you need to put more police there. And if you take the
Yes.
police away, the crime will get even worse. All right. So let's move on to Joy Reid. And again, she's a black woman who, up until a month ago, before MSNBC canned her ass, this is a quote. I don't have a video clip, but she's saying, this is a quote. She says, they, meaning white men, can't fix the history they did. Their ancestors made this country into a slave hell, but they can try to clean it up because of they got the Smithsonian. They can get rid of the slavery stuff. They got PragerU. They can lie about this history to the children. And here's the quote: they can't originally invent anything more than they were ever even able to invent good music. So she's saying white men stole every invention they ever made, they stole from black people because they can't invent everything. Now, let's talk about the great inventions of the Willis Carrier air conditioning, Eli Whitney, the cotton gin, McCormick, the grain harvester. So white men have never invented anything. Let's go all the way back to Galileo. Let's go back to Isaac Newton, Copernicus. So white men can't invent. They can only invent stuff they steal from black men. How
Yeah.
stupid is that? Is that rank white
Yeah.
way up there as a
Uh,
stupid statement? Is that a legitimate contender?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now here's the one that's all your fault. The Earth's getting warmer because of you and your dog. You do have a dog, right?
I do.
All right. So this was a article in Fortune magazine, and they're blaming people who own and adopt dogs as a major contributor, significant contributor to global warming. And here's a quote from the story. Dogs are big meat eaters, and meat is a significant contributor to climate change. That is because many of the farm animals which will become food release methane as they're growing, which is a greenhouse gas that contributes to climate change. Now, by the way, remember last week we talked about how China is building two new
Yeah.
coal-powered coal-powered power plants every week.
Hmm.
So, which do you think produces more greenhouse gas? 10,000 dogs or or a gigawatt coal plant?
Oh yeah, that's not even a question. It's
Okay.
obviously the gigawatt coal plant.
So, and they're building them at the rate of two per week. So is it your vote? More police won't make the streets safer. White men uh, have stolen every invention they've ever came up with from black people, or owning and adopting a dog is a
Yeah.
major contributor to climate change. What's your vote?
Yeah, I gotta go with the dogs.
Gotta go with the dog. So you don't. So you think power plants are bigger contributors than
Of
owning a
course
dog?
they are.
Okay. All right. All right, listeners. That was producer Susan's vote. That was the stupidest thing she heard all week. That owning a dog is a significant contributor to climate change. By the way, if you didn't own dogs, they'd be roaming free, wouldn't they? They'd be
Yeah,
feral.
true. Yeah.
So whether you own one or not doesn't mean there wouldn't be any dogs.
Because dogs have just become domesticated over time. There's still wild dogs out there, wolves,
Yeah.
coyotes.
All right. So let's go on to city-run grocery stores. And I kind of gave away the lead here, but here's the last week after we talked about it the week before, we talked about how the city-run grocery store in Kansas City, Missouri was failing. Well,
Mhm.
after we did that podcast, they actually announced that they're closing the store. And that was and had in that store. had been propped up by $18 million of taxpayer money, but after months of, and here's a quote, of bare shelves, severe crime, um, and what one reporter described as a rancid odor connected to improper maintenance in the store, the Sunfresh supermarket has shut its doors. Now, here's the thing. It was the only grocery store within 5 miles of the housing developments that was there put there to serve. So it was so bad that the people could walk to it were getting on buses going somewhere else to shop. What does that tell you about the how well a city can run a grocery store?
Yeah, I mean that this is this plan of Mondavi's to in yeah, I mean we always talk about history repeating
So,
itself. We
well,
need to
again,
learn from our mistakes.
yeah, $18 million.
Mhm.
Sunfresh Supermarket, Kansas City, Missouri, has shut its doors for good. And again, the
Oh,
fact that people who
shocking.
live who live a block or two away were getting on a bus to go 5 miles away because most of those people don't own cars. So they literally had to get on a bus to go shop at a market that was 5 miles further away. That tell you how successful it was.
Yeah.
Now, let's move on to quote the insurrection. And this is Senator Ted Cruz. This is testimony, and I forget what this guy works at the Pentagon, whatever. But he's testifying that the day on January 5th, the federal government was offering hundreds of National Guard troops to help protect the Capitol. And the Capitol building is not the White House. The Capitol building is the Senate where the Senate and the House of Representatives meet. And
Yes.
so it has
Mhm.
nothing to do with the executive branch of the government. It is strictly under the control of Congress. People don't understand that the president has no authority over the Capitol building. It is
Mhm.
not his to. He can't change the wallpaper. He can't. He can't change the paint. He can't change the paint in the foyer. The Capitol building is not under the control of the President of the United States. It's under the control of Congress. Anyway, but he can offer them security. So here's Senator Ted Cruz interviewing this guy who I think works at the Pentagon, whether or not um, National Guard troops were offered the day before January 6th. And here we go. On January 6th.
In the office of the Secretary of Defense in the Pentagon.
And what were you doing on that day?
On that day, specifically responding to preparing to mobilize and deploy the National Guard once we got the lawful request from the local governing authority, which was the mayor of DC and the Speaker of the House.
Who did the sergeant at arms report to?
The Speaker of the House.
That would have been Nancy Pelosi at the time. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
Would that also be Chuck Schumer, then the Senate Majority Leader?
The Sergeant at Arms, yes, Senator, reports up there.
Did Mayor Bowser, the Democrat elected mayor in D.C., either request or allow National Guard assistance?
She put in writing on the days leading up to January 6th a declination for National Guard additional support. And that letter is available publicly to the world.
And just to speak English for folks at home, a declination meant she said, no, don't send National Guard. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Were you physically on January 6th? So that's the loop repeating. So here's the question. So if January 6th was an attempt by Donald Trump to
Mhm.
overthrow the election and retain the presidency beyond his term,
Mhm.
why would he have offered hundreds of National Guard troops leading up to January 6th?
Yeah.
I mean, so can anybody really with a straight face, yeah, Trump tried to overthrow the government?
Yeah.
No, it just it fails the logic test. All right.
It's interesting though, here we are more than 4 years later, 5 years later, and I like he didn't become president that the last term. Like, look, can we move on?
Yeah, come on. All right. Well, anyway, but if you needed proof that no, it was not an attempted insurrection, they offered military force to prevent the takeover, and both Nancy
Mhm.
Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and the mayor of Washington said, "See, no, we don't want your troops here to help out. No, we got this." So anyway, all right, so let's move on to New Orleans. Now, New Orleans, I'll just read you from the story. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell was indicted Friday on federal charges alleging that she carried on an intimate relationship with a taxpayer-funded security guard and conspired to defraud the city of more than $70,000, according to an indictment unsealed in U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Louisiana. The 18-count indictment accuses Cantrell, age 53, and former New Orleans Police Department officer Jeffrey Vapey of conspiracy, wire fraud, obstruction of justice, making false statements, and making false declarations before a grand jury. So how about that for a job? You get to
Yeah.
sleep with the mayor of New York and build a city for the time you,
Yeah.
you spent in her bed. Pretty
Yeah.
cushy job, right? All right. All right. Let me move on to John Stossel interviewing Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State under John Stossel. Now, the question is who's the most dangerous person in the world? But that's with respect to the security of the United States, not with respect to the entire world, but just in terms of what's the biggest threat to the United States. And I think the answer is going to surprise you. So here's former Secretary of State uh, Mike Pompeo telling John Stossel who he believes is the biggest threat to the security of the United States. And here we go.
The most dangerous person in the world, Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo dealt with both of them, but when I interviewed him, he named someone unexpected.
I've said that Randy Weingarten is the most dangerous person in the world.
Randy Weingarten? The teachers union boss? I don't like her either.
And by the way, Randy R-A-N-D-I is a woman.
She once brought her union outside my office to protest my saying her union hurts kids. But the most in the world?
The most dangerous
More
person
than
in the world.
Putin? Or...
Yep. It's a close call on some of these things, but we'll figure out Putin. We'll figure out Xi Jinping. You teach kids that America is a racist nation. You teach kids that groups matter more than individuals. You teach kids that there's an oppressor class and that somehow America is the most indecent nation in the history of the world. You're done. The republic is finished. That next generation won't grow up to understand that no, these institutions matter. That we are the most noble nation in the history of civilization. Our schools are the place that inculcates this set of founding ideas. And when you do those things too, you destroy the family, the other primary institution in the United States.
You can watch my full interview with Mike Pompeo at johnstossel.com.
So what do you think of his assessment that that the teachers union is destroying America from within?
I mean, there's a lot of things going on with unions about, back in the day, in the early 1900s, unions were vital to the safety of our, workforce. But
Right, but he's referring to the teachers union, not that because they're a union, but because of what their policies and what their preaching is. What do you think of? Not again. I don't think he's anti. I don't think he came out as anti-union. I think he's coming out in against the. He's speaking out against what he sees as their agenda, the agenda of the teachers union. So, what did you think of his assessment of what they're teaching? Remember, you're probably too young, but somebody said we'll destroy. Was it Nikita Khrushchev that we will destroy you from within? Without firing a shot. And I think that's, what you're saying in terms of, young people. I think the Jesuits said, you give me a young child up to the age of 6 and I will shape him for life. And I think that's what we're saying. What we're seeing with a lot of these, radical college kids that have never held a job, never served their country. They've been literally indoctrinated. And I think that's what and again, it's a fairly radical, extreme view. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of truth to it that, the teachers union, not because they're a union, but because of the narrative they've chosen to adopt and preach is shaping the views and perspective of a lot of young people. So,
well, and you see that with a lot of the, terror groups, where they're using children, and these children don't know any better because, like you said, that, under the age of 6, and they recruit these small children from a young age to do harm that,
right. Yeah. Well, then, you get an 11-year-old, you convince him that blowing himself up is, is for
and they don't
cause.
know any better because they haven't learned right from wrong yet at that young age.
Exactly. How much time we got?
Oh, you got about 15 minutes.
Good. All right, we're going to move on to John Stossel again, interviewing a guy who he wrote a book. This guy used to be a flaming liberal, and he's written a book about the death of San Francisco. And he says, I was one of these guys. I helped ruin. So here's why San Francisco's dying.
San Francisco?
The town I love is sick, John.
Michael Schellenberger says his ideas wrecked his town.
I moved out to San Francisco when I was a young radical to work on political causes. And while I still support a lot of that work, it just went too far.
Brazen thieves emptied out the Louis Vuitton store in Union Square.
Right now, John, you can go into a drugstore and steal $950 worth of items, and nobody will do anything. They won't enforce the law against you.
Join me.
That happened because San Francisco's politicians had a noble idea.
Join us in rejecting the notion that to be free, we must cage others.
California passed something called Proposition 47. It eliminated penalties for many crimes.
Instead of investing in prisons, Proposition 47 will divert $1 billion to K-12 education, mental health, and drug treatment programs.
America does lock up a higher percentage of our people, disproportionately Black people, than any other country.
47 getting a lot of support from a lot of celebrities. That's Jay-Z at one of his concerts talking about the importance of Prop 47.
The jails are overcrowded. People don't get better being in jail. A lot of the people who steal maybe just needed the stuff. The state made a decision. We're not going to lock you up.
None of us want mass incarceration, but that was a recipe for disaster.
Knowing they won't be jailed, thieves steal right in front of security guards. In addition, San Francisco's filled with little tent cities where drug users light up in public, confident no one will interfere.
Cheryl Mott, she says she's been on the streets of San Francisco because of how easy it is for her to buy and use drugs here.
But even she wants the city to do something.
My opinion, they need to crack down here.
You're smoking crack every day.
For 12 years out here. Yeah, because it's more lenient out here. I'm from San Jose. If I went to San Jose to this, I'd be in jail.
Other cities do treat people like her differently.
They don't let people use drugs in public, and they built sufficient homeless shelters.
Bizarrely, some San Francisco activists argue against shelters, saying
everybody has the right to their own apartment. But that's completely crazy because it costs $750,000 to build a single unit apartment in San Francisco.
I once reported that San Francisco's regulation increased homelessness by limiting the size of buildings. My video said that was one of the big reasons for this. It's not true.
It's not true. I mean, if it were true that expensive places made for homelessness, then why don't we see large open air drug scenes in Carmel? Why don't we see large open drug scenes in many fancy neighborhoods? Homelessness is just a function of whether or not you allow people to camp in public or not.
And in Carmel, the police kick them out?
Yeah, of course.
I'm more sympathetic to the argument that people have a right to be outdoors, and we don't have a right to force them off the street if they aren't directly threatening anybody.
We should defend those rights because that's part of our freedom. But you don't have a right to shoot heroin at the public park.
We allow drinking in public.
We actually regulate it very firmly. The only thing that's worked is to have consequences for people's behaviors.
But in San Francisco, the consequences often fall on innocent people.
Cars are broken into an average of 74 times a day.
The people in charge are...
Can you imagine that? 74 car break-ins a day in the city of San Francisco. Can you say that is one every 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes there's a car being broken into in San Francisco.
And nothing will happen to those people.
Nothing will happen to those people. And I won't, there's 2 more minutes of this. I won't play the remaining 2 minutes, and this guy, Michael Schellenberger, he's a reform liberal. He advocated for a bunch of this stuff, and he's basically saying, I was wrong. It's killing the city. So
and we talk about San Francisco on this show all the time. San Francisco, Chicago, and all the problems that they have.
Yep, we have, and it's not getting any better. It's getting
worse.
Getting worse. All right. Hey, let's move on to our taxpayer relief shot. And for those who don't know why we call them taxpayer relief shot, here's the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, and he'll explain why we call them taxpayer relief shots. There we go.
Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
Or we can mosey on over to Polk County, where we have Sheriff Grady Judd, and he said,
but we have received information in social media that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
All right. So again, if the good guy, good woman with a gun kills a thug, you save the jury trial, the appeal, a court-appointed attorney, and 10 years in jail at $80,000 a year, which is $800,000 in jail costs. So let's move on to um, uh, Fairburn, Ohio, which is near Dayton. 5 people break into this guy's home in the middle of the night. Here we go.
Tonight, we're learning new information about a home invasion in Fairborn that's turned deadly. Good evening, I'm Katie Houston.
And I'm Mark Allen. One man is now dead, 4 others in custody after police say the resident opened fire in self-defense. It's a story we brought you as breaking news last night on 2 News at 6. Police rushed to the home in the 1000 block of Victoria Avenue after receiving reports that 2 people had been shot there. Alexa Ashwell has been following the story ever since it happened. She's live with the very latest in our top story tonight at 5. Alexa.
Mark, Katie, those 4 men who are accused in this home invasion were recently arraigned here at Fairborn Municipal Court. They are facing charges of burglary, robbery, and kidnapping, but I'm told by police they could be charged in their friend's death as well.
And by the way, that's very important. In most states, if somebody dies during the commission of a felony that you were participating in, you can be charged with murder even though you didn't pull the trigger. So one of their 5 buddies died, and even though they didn't pull the trigger, because they were participating in the felony that resulted in his death, they can be charged with murder. It goes on.
Well, all is quiet outside this home on Victoria Avenue in Fairborn. But the night before, it was a much different story. Police and medics swarmed the neighborhood after investigators say 5 men broke through the front door and tried to rob the people inside.
When they went into the house, they brandished the plastic gun and told the Mr. Sykes to get on the floor.
Police say the 2 residents are Wright State students. Trenton Seats was the first to see the suspects. His roommate, Christopher Muse, was upstairs.
He yelled out to the other resident who grabbed a gun and began firing.
One of the suspects, Tavon Fambro, was shot in the chest and later died at the hospital. Anthony Barwick II, the man who police say had the plastic gun, was shot in the leg. He was found lying in the road a block away on Harvard Avenue. 3 other men, London Norman, Tavon Lewis, who also attends Wright State, and Deron McGuire Jr. were taken into custody. All 4 facing felony charges of aggravated burglary, robbery, and kidnapping.
At this point, they're not being the 2 residents are not being charged with any crime.
Police are calling this fatal shooting self-defense, and neighbors seem to agree.
They shouldn't have tried to bang into somebody else's house.
Lisa Middleton lives directly behind the Victoria Avenue house. We spoke with her immediately after the shooting happened.
I'm not allowed to go back in my house.
And came back today after police released more information. Initially, she told us this incident made her feel unsafe, but says now that's not the case.
I believe that they do have the right to have a gun in their house.
Now, investigators tell me they will be presenting this case to a grand jury on Wednesday. We, of course, will continue to follow that investigation as it develops. Now, this story has brought to light the very controversial issue of gun laws here in our country. New at 6, I'll have more from residents as well as a member of the Buckeye Firearms Association.
So what do you think about that one, huh?
Yeah, it sounds like it was self-defense. And it's also, I found it interesting that these individuals are college students. So
Wright State,
they're well educated.
Yep.
That they come from some form of means, because college is not cheap.
Yep. Wright State college students. And
so I find that interesting.
Yeah, and the one that was being attacked shouted, hey, Bob, they get your gun, they're down here. Anyway, and anyway, so that's so that was our taxpayer relief shot. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, I have a question for you, and you probably don't have an answer for me. I had sent you an email over the weekend, and this has been in the news, but I have questions about this, though. As a pilot, I know you're a pilot, so the Southwest pilot that's been suspended for suspicion of wanting to, fly while he was supposedly intoxicated, I personally found the video, the body cam footage, to be a little inconclusive myself.
Yeah.
Now they said they smell alcohol in his breath, but diabetics also have that same smell in their breath.
Right.
So my question is, rather than the speculation of this, what I see as inconclusive video evidence, what was his actual blood alcohol content? Did they
Yeah.
take did they
I
actually
don't-
do a breathalyzer?
I don't know, and I told you I'd check into it, and I will. I've saved your email. But by the way, as a pilot, the FAA rule is it's 24 hours from the last time you, 24
Yeah.
hours from your last drink till the time you get at the wheel of an airplane. 24
Yeah,
hours.
so I mean, between either doing a breathalyzer test or taking a blood test,
Yeah.
which because I was like, it finally dawned on me, this all happened in January and it's August, so like it's been
Yeah.
8 months since this incident.
Yeah, no, I promise you I dig into it, and maybe next week I'll have the results
I
of
tried
my
to
research.
Google it. I could not find any news article
Okay.
that gave that information about him.
All right. I'll see if I can come up with anything different. Anyway, so I think we're running out of time. So I just want to thank everybody who listened to the podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your day. And I hope you found some of these topics interesting, as important as I did. If you have an opinion on the stupidest thing of those three contenders, please send an email to joe@jerziejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey, J-E-R, as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E, jerseyjoe.com, and vote for the stupidest thing you heard all week. Candidate, was it the dogs? Was it that white men only have done everything white men invent, they steal from black men? What was the other one we had? And Joy, no. And more police don't make our streets safer. You tell me which one you think is anyway. If you want to see some of the links that we talked about and you listen, I know, so I cut some of the links short. Just go to jerseyjoe.com, give producer Susan a day or two. She'll put some of the story links up, and you can find them at jerseyjoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey, Jerzee, jerseyjoe.com, and you'll find the story links. And with that, producer Susan, if you've got nothing else, I'll sign off and talk to you next week. You good?
All right, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Talk to you next. Bye-bye.